following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
And here's Captain Randy Giesland, the commander of our unit here, as he continues to navigate us into Tampa Bay. And he's doing the best he can to keep us from feeling like we're about to go overboard. But he's a good commander, and he's making everything really comfortable for all of us. So this edition of Sea Hunt was one that I think really epitomized what the show became. They really had to strike a balance between it being a show that was just strictly for the kids to enjoy the underwater and the scenes from the deep, and from being a show where Mike Nelson had to help solve crimes. You know, first and foremost, he was a scuba divist, but as a scuba diver, he was really one that also, with his license, he was hired to do a number of things that forced him to get involved in trying to help deal with so many of the underworld that tried to go underneath. And I think that's one of the things that made the show popular with adults as it was with kids. The kids, it was a natural for them, but they always got their parents around the set. We got another Sea Hunt that'll be coming up in about a half hour, so I hope you'll enjoy that one. But tonight, we have a show that we've only had one time before, and it goes back to the late 1950s. It had a 2-year run on ABC. It starred a new young performer, Gardner McKay, and it was based on a book that was written by James A. Michener, who you may remember is the man who wrote the book Hawaii, about which a big movie was made starring Julie Andrews and Max von Sydow back in the 1960s. But in this particular case, there was a lot of license taken with the book. It would always start with James A. Michener's Adventures in Paradise. But they weren't all based on the book. It was because the show went on long enough that they frankly had to take a lot of license with it. They had a number of guest stars over the years. Cesar Romero was on a couple of times. Maureen O'Hara actually did one. But Gardner McKay was a heartthrob of so many of the young women at that point in time. I have a good friend that used to be the television editor of the Ledger-Inquirer in Columbus, Georgia, Sandra Okamoto, and she had to almost have her blood pressure taken every time that Gardner McKay would come on the screen, and she's going to kill me for saying that, but I did. So as we continue our journey back inland to Tampa Bay, let's take you back to 1960 and one of the exotic adventures of Adventures in Paradise. Well, once again, it is Captain Randy Giesland giving us more of a journey as we get close to Tampa Bay. It's, as I say, the most unusual. Yeah, got to get the cap on to be official. This is the most unusual journey that we've had in between shows on Steve Beverly's TV Classics, but it's fun because we're out here. It's already fall, but here in South Florida, we are looking at temperatures in the upper 80s, in the low 90s, but the water feels great. We just came out of it, and it is just fabulous, and it's got a great breeze as we're coming inside. So Randy's trying to give us really a showcase tour of all of the area bay. And now here we are once again. Now, let me tell you, Adventures in Paradise was not a major hit. But the reason it stayed on the air for the length of time that it did is because it did draw a significant number of young women. And because of that, the sponsors stayed with it until it became apparent that they were not going to get any dramatic rise in the ratings. But for a couple of years after it went off the air on ABC, it was packaged with a number of the other Warner Brothers shows and became a popular rerun favorite for many stations in the late afternoons. So it wasn't all for naught just because it was not a major hit in the ratings. It did sell some of the sponsors' products, and it was a very successful show in reruns for about 3 years before it finally faded from the scene after much of television went to color. Well, now as we begin to head closer to our shore, we're going to take you back for another edition of Sea Hunt. And of course, Mike Nelson was in more of what I would call espionage in that first episode that we had, but tonight, this is going to be one for the whole family, and you get to enjoy seeing, I think, really more of the adventures underneath in this particular episode. And I think you look at that show being on the air for 4 years, it made Lloyd Bridges a lot of money because he owned 20% of the series. And so after it went off the air and became successful in reruns, that just padded his bank account. So tonight, as we continue this journey here in the Gulf of Mexico, let's head back to 1960 in this edition of Sea Hunt. Well, The Price is Right gave away an estimated 63 boats during the course of its nighttime version that ran for 7 years from 1956 to 1963. And they were always first class, anything from cabin cruisers. They even gave away a submarine once on The Price is Right, and that was exactly somebody wanted. I don't know, we never did find out what happened to a lot of those gifts that these people won. I don't know how people got lessons on how you were able to maneuver a submarine, a small one, but they gave one away back in 1959. And of course, Bill Cullen, being the host that he was, he would always have the great humor along with that. But tonight we thought it would be just fun to bring you out here as we were having a theme of water on Steve Beverly's TV Classics, and that as we continue, we'll be back with you again tomorrow night with another set of TV Classics. We'll be back on shore, and it'll be another wonderful evening in which we can enjoy some of the stuff in our treasure trove. So until we're with you again tomorrow night, this is Steve Beverly for Captain Randy Giesland and our whole crew saying, come back to see us every chance you get, and keep watching the classics, because that was when television was fun.